Welcome to the Vision Profiles podcast. Join us, two dedicated Apple Vision Pro users, as we dive into everything from hardware and software to apps and the latest updates in the world of Apple Vision Pro. I'm Marty Jencius. I happen to be a faculty member at Kent State University, a podcaster, and an avid Apple product fan.
And I'm Eric Bolden. I work in IT, but my interest is in finding interesting ways to share content. Currently, photography of plants and birds and panoramic sequences.
And we have a guest with us tonight. This is always great to have a guest. Today with us, we have Andy Hall. He is an adopter of Apple Vision Pro and a creator of Starship SE Corps. Did I get that right?
You got that right. It's kind of a mouthful, so you got it right.
And we'll find out more. We'll find out more about the app that you created and how to use it. I've taken a look at it, but you're going to need to explain it better for me, and I think also for the folks who are listening to the podcast. Eric, right. I'm checking in. Are you in possession of your Vision Pro this week? There it is. Oh,
it's updating right now.
To what? The 2.0?
Yep.
Oh,
I may regret that, but I'm going to give it a shot. We'll see what happens.
And Andy, have you played around with it yet?
No, not with 2.0. I got my rationale why not. We can get into it more, but not yet. I'm still working on the current version, 1.2.
Yeah, well, I always said that if I needed to have one that was on a solid version and then one that was on the beta, it would give me an excuse to buy two Vision Pro headsets. So neither the twain shall meet. But I went ahead and jumped onto the beta as soon as I could get it. We'll talk about that because that's part of what we've got in news and information. So today's Vision Pro news, we're going to cover some areas like a simple reminder of what happened at WWDC. There have been, I think, more opportunities for us to play with this and find out some other things than when we did our last podcast episode on WWDC. And we're also going to talk about the beta. Apparently, Apple has also just today put out a new developer beta that is a 1.3 version. But let's start with, and we have some news too, and some little bits of items that have come up in the news. So let's start about how are you both haven't done Vision 2.0 yet. So some of the things that Eric's putting his headset on, you're going to see if it's done?
It's not done yet. It's still thinking.
Okay. Well, a couple of things that have come out that I think are really amazing. If you've got a chance to look at spatial photos, and I played with those over the week, there are certain photos in my library it doesn't work with, and other photos works seamlessly with and is really quite incredible. The hand gestures I'm getting used to because the way it's explained in the WWDC video, it seems to be two separate kind of movements. If your hand's down or your hand's up, you do two different things, but it's actually a movement from hand open, which is what gives you the button to allow you to get a home page up. And then you turn that over once the button appears and it turns into the control center thing. So it's a muscle movement we'll all get used to, but it's really, really very cool. I haven't done the guest login yet, but because I don't have anybody competing with the headset in my household. So I haven't tried that out, but that's exciting as soon as I find a friend who wants to use it on a regular basis. I found out today there is a way to force quit multiple apps. Both of you might know how to force quit. You press both buttons down at the same time and hold them. And then what comes up is, all the apps you have open. Well, in the past, you had to do one, next, delete. On 2.0, you can select down the list of the ones that you want to force close. And I've had to do it because, sometimes I'm running something and something's real janky and it's like, maybe I better force close all the stuff that's open in the background to help with it. But that's a new piece with 2.0. And
it's
then,
a nice addition.
Yeah. Yeah. And you forget about what you've opened up unless you go into to look at force close to see what else is open and running in the background. You don't have little dots or things like that you have on Mac to tell you what programs are running in the background. So, and then multi-view windows up to 5. I haven't tried that. I know Eric, we talked about it, about the possibility of doing multi-view. And I think it's limited the same way people that you can do in spatial personas is limited to 5. Having multi-view in sports and being able to have multiple games open on the MLB app, that's kind of cool to be able to do that. So those are things that we mentioned in the past. So Eric, did you have any trouble downloading Vision 2.0?
No, I did find that Vision OS 1.2 was a whole lot more stable than the 1.1 version, which had been creating a lot of problems. We actually ended up visiting the Apple Store a couple of times. They had to do a restore in store. It turns out if you brick your device and you have to take it to an Apple Store, you get 3 chances. After the 3rd chance, they say, we got to send it in. So they got through 2 chances, and the 3rd one it worked, but it was the end of the night, and they said, store's closed, you got to go, and shut down the device, sent the person who had custody last week home with it, got home, opened it up, it was bricked again, had to go back to the Apple Store. But went back in the morning that time. He doesn't live that far away. But went back in the morning that time. So he had more time and said, hey, I'm going to stay until this is fully functional. And by that point, 1.2 was out. It popped up. It worked. Everything was smooth. He wiped it. I got it. Started right up. No problems. Now that I put the beta on it, who knows?
Yeah.
But the 1.2 was very, very nice. It all worked. It ran. I was really happy.
So, Andy, have you had some experience between 1.1 and 1.2? And then maybe this is a good time to talk about why you're not going to 2.0 at this point.
Sure. Yeah. I installed 1.2 as soon as I saw it. Can't remember if it was the week right before or right at the beginning of WWDC. But when I saw it, I put it on there because I did want to see if my app crashed or anything on 1.2 since I released it on 1.1, and I haven't seen any problems. So I was kind of mostly focused that first few days, and then we got right into WWDC. So I've been kind of focused on, watching videos and learning as much as I could. But I did try out multiple times, multiple boots. I didn't see any jankiness with 1.2. My app didn't crash. That was good. So from what I can see, it was good. What I haven't done, and maybe if I'm not sure if I understand, I might want to redo my persona for 1.2. Did they improve that? I can't remember. If they did, I'll probably redo that just to get it a little bit better. But I haven't seen any problems with 1.2. And the reason I'm hanging on is I just over the last month, I've kind of done a whirlwind first minimum viable product of my app on Vision Pro. I've had it out on iOS and everything for a couple of years. I was working on some other things on iOS that I wanted to get done. So I just barely got around in late April, May to working on a native version of my app. And so I've only got just some very, very minimal things in there, but I was happy to get that out as quick as I could in the end of May. But I've got a kind of a laundry list of feature updates I want to do to add some more things, and I want to do it on the current version to make sure it's working good. And then once I kind of tick off a couple of features, hopefully over the next month or two, then I'll probably put on the 2.0, because with 2.0, I also learned there's some additional capabilities that we as developers will have that might even make things a little nicer, particularly with animation. So I am going to go there, but I want to get a couple of more features out on the current whatever 1.2 version first. So that's kind of why I haven't made the jump.
Well, this last week I tested your app on 2.0, and for all intent and purposes, it does work on 2.0.
Okay, good.
From what I
First to
can tell.
hear.
Again, yeah.
From what we can tell.
You
right?
you can patiently work on those changes you want to do on 1.2, and then worry about moving it over to 2.0. I had problems getting 2.0 on, and Eric and I might have spoken about this, or I spoke on another episode about it, because I had done like the 1.2 beta something where they add, once I put 1.2 on, they had another update, and I went ahead and did the update on it, and I lost the capability of finding betas.
Huh.
So, as they say in the system preferences, you look for the option for betas in the software update. It wasn't there. And I tried to solve that problem multiple times in multiple ways, and it wouldn't work. So I just said, I'll just do a hard reset, and upgraded from 1.1 to 1.2, and then 2.0, and it worked seamlessly. It was a lot more work than I wanted to get there, but
Right.
it restored some of the functionality in terms of the beta options for upgrade. But if you read about the 1.3 upgrade, and we have an article on that we'll post in the show notes, it talks about if you upgrade, there's no going back. You can't go back to 1.2. And if I wonder if some of that, the problem why I couldn't get 2.0 to load on mine as easily without doing a complete refresh. Good news was all those apps that I loaded that I haven't touched are still in my purchase section, but aren't on the screen. So going back to some of the news, again, there's an article on how to download Vision OS 2 developer beta that we'll have posted. And then some other cool things about Vision 2.0. The keyboard that now you can have in environments, you can have your keyboard up. I love the comment sections and some of these articles where they go, I really hope Apple will make it so other keyboards can be accepted. It's like Apple's in the business of selling other people's keyboards. That's why it's magic, right? The home view upgrades. I mentioned this on some show that I was on. It sounds like when you see it, it sounds like it's getting on a phone, on an iPhone, or even on an iPad. Everything goes jiggly, and then you can just move things around. Everything goes jiggly, and you have to move one, then you have to stop it, then you have to go get them jiggly again. The other problem is when you load new apps, they don't load in alphabetical order. So if you on 1.2 or 1.1 are going, okay, I want to find this app, and you page through because you know what it's called and you know what you want to get to, you lose that. It's like on a phone, everything gets loaded, or on an iPad, everything gets loaded in the order that you load it. So I've lost an indexing system for finding apps, or even just here's a patch, guys. Here's what you do with 2.1. Put a little functionality into it where I can press a button and everything goes in alphabetical order once it's set. That wouldn't work either. We'd be back to the original setup. So,
right.
Folders. So there's a article that was on 9to5Mac about these extra pieces that they call tidbits with Vision OS 2. An interesting article by Apple Insider talking about the how the upgrade seems more significant than what people are saying it is. And there were a lot of folks, Marquise Brownlee was one of them, who and more than him, that were saying, this is not a 2.0 upgrade. Now that people are spending time with it, it's not a full point upgrade. Now that people are spending time with it, they're like, yeah, it's pretty significant for where it was as a platform to where it is now.
Well,
I thought it was. Go ahead, Eric. Sorry.
I was just going to say that it's not even all out yet, because there are several components that won't come out until later in the year.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
will be even bigger, like the virtual display of multiple displays instead of just a single one. I'm waiting for that.
Yeah, that looks neat. You know, I rewatched the keynote later last week after most of my sessions that I wanted to watch. And yeah, just because they did Vision OS 2.0 right up front in the front of the keynote pretty much before they got to everything else. And it did seem to go kind of quick. They definitely covered some things, but not until you get to that slide with the bento, whatever they call it, the bento slide that shows all the different things. I don't recall them touching on all of those, and it was a pretty full slide. So I thought it was there was some neat things, and yeah, they didn't cover everything, but I was glad to see those. And I did watch, the developer sessions, and they get into some more of those things. But just seeing some more of those things on the slide was made me feel good that we got some more updates maybe than the session talked about when they were going in the keynote.
Yeah, I learned a new term today. I mean, I always remember Bento as the database application
Right.
for Mac, and was disappointed that disappeared because I was using it for a lot of stuff. But I learned what a bento is now. It's that full figure that has all the little squares in it with the different things that in this case Vision OS can do. Andy, you were talking about things that you learned that are capable on this platform. And because I'm not a developer and don't understand that language, a couple of the things that they put in on the bento for Vision OS is volumetric APIs, tabletop kits, and enterprise APIs. Is that sort of what you're getting at, or is it something else?
Yeah. And I don't know how far I can get into it with the developer NDA, but the stuff they did talk about and that they mentioned, the volumetric APIs, there's just a little bit more control a developer can provide if someone, and I don't have a volume in my app right now, but I'll probably do one at some point. So I kind of skipped the volumetric part, but the volumetric part is basically if you're in your shared space in your living room, you can have the 3-dimensional volume, and they've added capabilities to resize that now, to add some placards that follow you around if you walk around the volume now. So they made some nice improvements to extend what a user can interact with in the volume in their shared space, say in their living room. Whereas before or currently, the way the volumes are, they're kind of a fixed size. And so you're not able to kind of resize it and do some things. So yeah, that's one of the ones I was thinking of. And I'm trying to remember the other one, but that was kind of a big one. Yeah. That they did kind of mention in passing in the keynote. And those are the kind of things. But there's also some additional lower level stuff. I'm not sure how much I can get into, but that'll help with just generally with better animation kind of stuff that you can do. And that's one of the things I'll have on my list to do when I do 2.0 as a beta.
Yeah. Some of the things on the bento is creating spatial photos, which we've already talked about, the keyboard breakthrough, new environments, and even some environments that on the 2.0 are grayed out, but the image is there for you to see what they're going to be doing soon when they add that. Multi-view, we mentioned travel mode on trains, which I didn't know was a thing, but I think there are a lot of train commuters who would like to be spending their time doing work in travel mode. Different immersion videos, rearranging the home view. We talked about that, the new gestures, and health kit, the recent guest user and mouse support. So external devices. I saw somebody with a PlayStation controller somehow hooking that in as an external device. Follow your breathing during meditation. I tried that. I don't know if it followed my breathing or I followed the meditation breathing, and it looked like it was synchronous. I'm still trying to figure that out. But then the Big Mac virtual display, folks who are like, oh, I'd never use that. Why would I want to put, and then they saw that and they're like, Yeah, I could use that. I could do that.
Right.
So
What about
Can you
AirPlay
tell?
receiver?
Yeah.
AirPlay receiver. Yeah. In terms of people being able to send you stuff while you have the headset on. Am I right with that?
Yeah, I think that's it. I guess my hope is that if you've got an Apple Vision Pro that's not very big, you could have an iPad with a bunch of space on it and then just send stuff over.
Oh,
So
you
you
mean
carry around
big?
movies on another device, basically.
Yeah. So you mean by big, you
Uh,
mean the storage?
Yeah, because we are all thinking maybe we'll need a second device to deal with betas and all that, or extra people, and I don't want to pay the same amount with my next device. I want to get one that's a little smaller.
You know what I'm thinking?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the Mac Virtual Display, and I tried to watch it, like I said, a couple of times. So I have an M1 24-inch iMac. I really like that. And I kind of split my development between that, especially if I want to do some mouse specific pixel kind of creation. And then I have my M2 MacBook Air. I'm trying to see if I understand, because I've tried the virtual display with my MacBook Air, and that seemed to work real nice. And I've done a little Xcode with that. But with this new feature, with the, you can go normal, wide, ultra wide, they were showing. I was trying to see if I could understand, is that if I had windows on my MacBook Air, if I want those windows to show up in the ultra wide, do all the individual app windows on my 13-inch MacBook Air have to all be on one screen? Or can you have spaces? I use spaces a lot. Or does it all have to be on one space, one screen, and then they just spread out? Do you know how that's supposed to work?
I'm uncertain about that. I think I had heard that you could also have multiple devices. So you could be doing something on one and mirroring that as a virtual display, and also having a second virtual display.
Oh, interesting.
Combining devices.
I didn't know you could do that. I thought that was a restriction. So if that's true, that'll be even nicer.
Yeah, really.
Basically getting two 4K displays glued together.
Yep.
So whatever you could send to that. I mean, I just like it because I could carry around a laptop and then have a much bigger display than I get with just a laptop.
Right.
And the way I had been doing it is do my one virtual display and then have a device sitting there, and I can look at it through pass-through, and then I would get two displays. Not quite the same, but close-ish.
Right. Yeah.
So having the two displays actually in the environment, that's perfect. Even, two displays or, the extra wide single display, either way. I just want to see it.
So I'm desperately trying to find this, and maybe we'll find it by the end of the show, or we'll bring it up next show in terms of how that's going to work. We know it's not available now. It's going to be coming out later in the year as an option. It's one of those things that Eric said, not everything's out yet. The other bit of news before we get into cameras, because we have a couple of articles, again, we'll put them in the show notes directly in the episode notes, no, your Apple TV, Apple Watch, and Vision Pro aren't getting Apple Intelligence. This was an Apple insider that they're keeping it to the iPad and the Mac OS in terms of use for that. Any reaction to that?
Well, what I will say is I can understand them focusing on iPhone, iPad, and Mac, and they kind of hammered that home in the Apple Intelligence section. They kind of specifically just said that. But what I found interesting is sometimes I'll be on YouTube a lot and watch a lot of the YouTube influencers and stuff and things like that. There was one YouTube person, and Craig Federighi and Tim Cook did multiple interviews last week with some of these influencers. And I'm pretty certain one of those, because I watched it, I wasn't thinking about it. I'm pretty sure Craig brought up to one of those influencers, and I think it was prompted by one of their questions, that, we see Vision Pro as also ultimately having Apple Intelligence. But you're right, it's limited now, and they definitely limit it. But I was surprised because, they don't usually talk about future plans. But he definitely mentioned intelligence and Vision Pro, at least in some future context. So I think they plan to put it there. I just, you're right, it's not there now, and they didn't claim it right now in the keynote. So I was happy about that because I would like to see that. So maybe they're getting there next year or something. But yeah, I think they'll get there eventually.
And I guess I'm not too worried. As long as one of your devices can handle it, you should be able to see it, connect to it, remote it, one way or the other. As long as you've got that device, you should get the same effect. More and more, there's a much tighter integration between all the different devices. I mean, I'm on my phone and I want to authenticate, but I'm wearing my Vision Pro, but my watch will authenticate. I still get connected almost like I'm using Face ID. The three devices just work together. So I see no reason why that kind of collaboration won't continue moving forward.
I'm still lurking up on this virtual Mac virtual display, and the answer to the question that I've gotten thus far is no. You can't arrange multiple screens on a Mac virtual display like you can with external monitors. However, you can use the split screen app to use two virtual displays at once while working with your Mac and wearing Vision Pro. Some of these responses, there's a PC Magazine article out. The PC Magazine article was March 11th. So it's saying, no, you can't do it. This is what you're limited to. They might just be, but I'm not sure they're talking with the current, they don't have knowledge of the 2.0 platform. So we'll have to save that for the next show for an answer with that. Eric, you want to talk about the two lenses the one lens, and then the Blackmagic camera.
So I don't know a ton about it. I did look into it because it's like, well, okay, if I want to take pictures. The information out right now says that the lens is only available for the EOS R7. That's all that the drivers are available for right now. They have an older dual lens that's much more expensive. I don't know a lot about that one either. But the new one seems to be the one that they're pushing. There's software that comes with it to help you generate the spatial video. So I can only think they're just going to keep coming out with new options and better tuned software, and there'll be more out. It's not there yet. I would strongly suggest waiting until it actually shows up. Then there will be sample videos, sample images, and places you can go to try it out.
Yeah, 140.
But it's nice to see that they came out with that.
144-degree field of view, and focus ring can adjust to handle other functions such as aperture. The lens is the first 3D lens from Canon with autofocus. I think you're referring to a previous lens system that cost $2,000. This one only costs $1,100.
Yeah.
So I don't know what lenses cost, Eric. How does that fit within the range of lenses?
Yeah, it's about average. Some are a lot more expensive, some are less. So it's the lens is the important part. Well, the camera body is important too. They're both important. The idea though that Canon produced a lens and they're specifically talking about this means that there is interest from Canon. There's interest from Canon's customers and interest in producing things for devices like the Vision Pro.
Yeah.
That's just good news all around. It takes a while to build up that infrastructure. This is a really good sign.
Andy, are you a photo nerd like Eric?
No, not so much. I mean, I definitely love taking my pictures. I've got a 15 Pro Max and kind of went to the Max for the first time this year, and I'm loving it. I go to Disneyland a lot, so I try to take the spatial video with with the camera, and it looks good when I come back to the Vision Pro. But not a big camera nerd, so don't know as much about that stuff. But it seems like some of these big companies are really starting to dive in, and they really touted that in that keynote. So hopefully we can get some good stuff.
Yeah. So one of the comments said it's amazing that they made this lens, but it won't work on more expensive cameras. It only works on the EOS R7 and not on the R6 or R5 or R3. Just interesting. Again, I don't know that much about cameras and lenses and such. So I'm glad I have Eric as part of this to have that conversation. Now, what about Black Magic? If you didn't spend enough money on your Canon lens, fascinating stuff about the Black Magic, and we'll again with this link in the episode notes. Some details about that came out with a resolution of 8100 by 7200. Offers 16 stops of dynamic range to ensure detail and color accuracy. Shoot stereoscopic 3D immersive cinema content at 90 frames per second. Really nice. Now, they don't even tell you what the lenses cost in this article. They just tell you that the housing is $15,000 just to buy the housing.
If you've got a project where you need to use that lens, it doesn't matter what it costs.
So this is more of, I think, the professional kind of cinematographer basis. So it's interesting. And again, we'll share that in the notes. Internationally, we have an article that they're going to start doing demos in the UK. There are a lot, and Canada. They're going to begin July 12th. This is a Mac Rumors article. They have already started pre-purchase sales in China and Singapore. And yeah, Thursday, June 13th at 6 p.m. pre-orders started in China, Japan, and Singapore. And the pre-orders will be starting June 28th in Australia, Canada, France, Germany, and the UK. So we're going to see a bigger international spread with this. Does that impact app development? I mean, do you have to start to think of language?
It is something that you can take into consideration. I haven't done that myself as much as I should have, what they call the localization and things like that. I think at this point, my apps just haven't had, the kind of volume that I've been able to spend the time to do that. But app development definitely has a strong aspect of the localization. So if you had enough volume and you really wanted to make a better experience for the different users in the different countries with their native language, app development has a whole thing about how to do localization. Good news is Apple gives you a lot of that stuff out of the box. You don't have to usually write tons of code to do it, but it is something you have to target specifically. So I haven't done that yet, but that is something on my list to do as we go further along.
Well, if you spend any time in the social platforms within Vision Pro, it's all over the world already. Countries that we're waiting to have it released, and people in those countries already have it and are engaging on the social platforms. And that's very cool, actually. That's very cool for me. Mac Rumors article about spatial personas can touch fingers, high five, fist bump each other with visual and audio feedback. Eric's my only friend who has a headset. And, the kids go to the other parents with Eric occasionally. So the stars have to meet up where we can find a time we can both be in and see if we can once again try to do the spatial personas, which eluded us, I think, quite a bit the first time. And then see if we can do all the important things like fist bump, high five, and touch fingers, touch spatial persona fingers. You mentioned about doing a new persona. When I went to 1.1 to 1.2 and upgraded to 1.2, I went to do a new persona because the personas, people complained were terrible on 1.1. When I went to 1.2, I couldn't do it in the simple way that you do with 1.1, where you hold it in front of you.
Right.
And it kept saying, put your shoulders in a natural position. And I was like, okay, am I hunching up or what? And then
Right.
hold it up and then get it farther away because I have a big head in order to get into it. I think on 1.2, I switched into an accessibility mode and actually did my persona that way.
Really?
They
Okay.
show images of people putting it on a bookshelf. We have a lot of clutter in our house, and finding a bookshelf that's deep enough that's going to hold this device and that's going to be in an area that is lighted enough, because then the next complaint is put more light on your face.
Right.
It was a major pain in the butt to do it on 1.2. No easier for me on 2.0. So yeah, I finally got it after now the end result was much better. So I'm glad I did it,
Okay.
but I don't think I ever want to change my persona again. Because it's such a pain in the butt.
Wow.
See, I want to try sticking it on top of a car, because then I'll be outside, I'll have bright sunlight, and then see if I can record the persona there.
Just as long as nobody's in the car with the gas on, ready to pull up.
There they go.
Well, you'd have to put it in motion detection, or you'd have to put
Right.
it
Travel mode, right?
in a travel mode in order to get your persona done. An article from Engadget that came out just in the last day or so. You can't mirror your phone while you're mirroring your Mac on Apple Vision Pro. Again, that they talk about, even though it's on the same network, what the capacity is that you can do it with. They do mention in the article ways of doing it, but I think they mention an app that you can use that will do it.
Now, are they talking about the new feature where you can, on your Mac, mirror your iPhone onto the Mac as an app, a mirror app? Are they saying you can't do that at the same time you're in Mac display mode for your Vision OS? Is that what they mean?
I think that's what they're saying with this.
Okay.
And
see, I want to try using screens and see if that will let me connect to the Mac while the Mac is mirroring the phone.
Yeah, they're talking about the continuity restrictions, and that's part of the problem. Here's a few tidbits we've learned about iPhone mirroring on Mac OS Sequoia while exploring WWDC. It requires both Wi-Fi and Bluetooth to work, and the iPhone is projected at 60 frames per second. When you launch a game, it flips to landscape. Mirroring will use around the same amount of battery life. That's no surprise there. If you unlock your iPhone directly, mirrored window closes immediately on the Mac. And you'll eventually be able to drop and drag files from the content between the iPhone and the Mac. This feature will also be available on third-party apps.
So I haven't seen anything yet that lets you know if you can do the mirroring while your phone is acting as a camera, because that would be useful. I would really like that, because I'll have to wait and try it out.
Yeah. So I know we're all looking at 2.0, but 1.3 came out. That was announced today for developer beta. And, some of the article said, well, why would you want to go there? You're already on 2.0. But it gives a description on how to install Vision OS beta on Apple Vision Pro. Believe me, if you've done 1.1 and 1.2, there's probably no surprises in this article about how to install a beta on it. But just an announcement that it came out today. Doesn't say much in terms of what's introduced. They do say, be aware there's currently no process to revert from a beta version in Vision OS to a release version, unless you happen to own a developer's strap. And finally, Eric, the toy I got a couple of weeks ago was an Insta360 4K. And I got it because I was thinking I should create some video that I can then import or post into some app on Vision Pro. And so I've been playing with it this weekend. I haven't found anything that I don't have a mountaintop in the middle of Ohio that I can stand on to shoot beautiful, 4K video in 360 and send it around. But I'm creating a video for Mac Expo, the Macstock Expo and conference. And so and it's sort of like I buy the camera and then it's like, I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Well, I better find an excuse to use it because I just paid a lot of money for it. And so I decided to start shooting some video around here that'll be part of something I'll do and submit for Macstock. And we should talk about the Macstock conference before we end off tonight. So there is there's an article that was just published today in 9 to 5 Mac on how to create 8K 360 videos for Apple Vision Pro with Insta360. They call it X4. And I haven't had time to spend much time with this, nor do I have a subject matter to do it with yet. But I will attempt to do some of this just so I can get the full work out of it.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, the camera itself, it's at the bottom of the article. Somebody commented and said, if you're going to promo all this stuff and you're getting, getting this, if you're burying advertisement in this article, if it's a slick way to do an advertisement, you ought to be kind of upfront with it. Well, nobody's bought me anything lately, so that's not the case. But 9 to 5 Mac gives the steps for being able to do this, and it's pretty cool. So I'll play with it. And that's all we've got for news and information. Put all these links in the episode notes so people who are listening to the episode can find them there and go to the full articles. Andy, tell us a little bit about your Vision Pro experience and then a little bit about the app that you're doing.
Yeah, sure. So like a lot of people, I was really excited to get a Vision Pro, but I didn't think I was gonna, obviously the price is pretty substantial, but I really like trying to get some of the cutting edge things, at least in terms of all the different Apple devices. But I did go first day. In fact, I was the second appointment for a demo at my local Apple store. So there was only one person ahead of me. So I got in there, got the demo, and I just, my heart fell even more thinking, oh, I would really like to get this. So long story short, over probably a week or two after that, it wasn't me, but I was so thankful. Someone spoke in my wife's ear, said, "Let him get it. It'll be a fun thing for him and stuff." So she kind of gave me the overhead, as we all do, looking at budgets and things like that. She kind of gave me the okay, and I I went right out the door, went right back to the store, and so I don't have the exact date, but I'm guessing it was late February, maybe early March. It wasn't more than three and a half weeks after it came out, and a couple weeks after the demo. I was so excited, brought it home, and was playing with it in the living room. And my wife must have taken 50 pictures of me just wearing it, saying, "Here you go. You can remember what you really look like when you first got it," kind of thing. So that was kind of my purchase experience. Was that right off the bat demo. And yeah, it really is, because I work in nowadays, as I've started developing for the Vision Pro, I work in the simulator, and, it's just a 2D window. And it's like we've all talked about, you guys have talked about, there's just nothing like the demo. Now, I have pretty high prescription glasses. And so my demo experience was, if you call it, slightly muted, because they didn't happen to have whatever I needed exactly for my Zeiss lenses. So I just had to go with, my regular vision, which is not that great, but it was more than enough to see, wow, this is a whole new thing. And I was blown away. And like I said, I was the second demo, so they're still trying to work through their script on how they do stuff. But I'd seen the one right before me, and the geniuses did a really good job. So I was just kind of blown away and just thinking, well, one time I'll find a way to get it. So I was really happy to get it a few weeks after that. And, my initial experience, and it really was probably for the first, maybe mostly March and April, I didn't have a lot of time to spend on it, but every couple days I would get on it, and I found myself mostly enthralled with going through all the entertainment, the videos, and trying to go through all the immersion experiences that show up in the Apple TV app, Apple Vision Pro. So those blew me away, especially that Highline video of the lady doing the tightrope walk in Norway. Oh my goodness. It really just felt like you were right there. And I just was so nervous for her. But really, all of those were very impressive. And so, of course, I watched them all and got that done in like a couple hours. And I wish they would do some more. And I think they're kind of saying, yeah, more is coming. But I already got through all of those. And then I began really enjoying the environments and then watching Apple Vision Pro TV shows in their cinema environment.
Yeah.
So my initial uses were entertainment and particularly the cinema environment. I just love that you could put yourself in different parts of the virtual theater there. So I'd be watching For All Mankind. I really like that show. And some of the other movies, Mission Impossible and stuff. So I used it a lot for movies and TV shows because it was great, just like your own theater. And I love that. And that is still a prime use for me. But yeah, that entertainment was great.
Yeah, I think I ignored Apple TV for a long time, although I've had an account and Apple TV Plus. And once I got the Vision Pro headset, it's sort of like, let's see what show I can watch here. Let's see what show I can watch there. And really started to use it heavily. So now I consider myself a pretty regular user of Apple TV Plus, and then finding that there's all this good content that I hadn't been aware of because I didn't have a place to use it.
Yeah, it really brings new life into it when you can see it in such a big screen, dark format. Obviously you can watch the shows in their own window. You didn't have to necessarily be in the cinema or the full immersion environment, but it just made a whole difference to do that. So I also go on the Disney app, love the Disney Plus app. They especially had their own version of their Disney theater, and that was really cool looking. So I'd watch my Star Wars there or something, or one of their either Tony Stark Tower or the land speeder from Star Wars. It was a nice touch. And again, I hope they continue. And then of course recently, Disney came out with their What If app, their Marvel What If app.
That was really nice.
I think you guys talked about that. And I love that. I'm not a big gamer, but it was enough of a game interaction as well as what do I call it? In a spatial immersion experiences with the people there standing with shadows in your living room. It was enough of that plus gaming, a little bit of gaming for about an hour that I think they hit it. Great balance. I love that.
Yeah.
Especially. So once I did that, I was finishing up. As far as what I started wanting to do is I had a whole backlog of things I wanted to do for my iPhone, iPad app. It's been around a little while. So I was really trying to get over one more hurdle in those apps. And I did in kind of the February, March timeframe. And I said, you know what? I've got a lot more stuff I'm going to do in the app, and it's still true. But now's the time I want to click over, and I want to try to do something on Vision Pro. So that's when, kind of April, May timeframe, I said, let me go back, learn my session videos, review any kind of Apple documentation or YouTube developer videos. And they have such good documentation that I was able to get something up and running. What you see today, again, I call it kind of minimal viable product. I just added enough of a choice to be able to have kind of some spatial screens and then a full immersion experience. And there's much more that I want to do with that. But I kind of put the other stuff on the shelf for the iPhone and the iPad. And I said, let me get something out on Vision Pro. It's still early. And I'm a hobbyist. I don't know if I've said that. I'm just a hobbyist. I don't really make any money off the apps or anything. So I just kind of tinker around, a few hours a month, even with a busy schedule. I have another job full time as an engineer, and I'll talk about that. But so as a hobbyist, I wanted to kind of just incrementally enjoy the hobby of continuing to develop. And I wanted to do something now rather than later for Apple Vision Pro. So I was glad to kind of do something. And now once you do that, you start getting a lot more ideas. And what I've started using the Vision Pro for more now is kind of working in a multi-window environment with the Vision Pro on, and I do a lot of my development feature lists and stuff like that in the Reminders app, because last year we got the Kanban view, the column view, and I use that at work a lot. So you can kind of put stuff, here's your backlog, things you'll get to eventually, here's what you're working on right now, WIP or work in process. And I can just move all the different things I want to do into subtasks and columns, because that's how I like to work normally. So I do that on the Vision Pro, and then I take my detailed notes in the Notes app and I link between things. So I find myself doing a lot of work between notes and reminders just for my hobbyist developer whenever I find some time to do that. And I'm really enjoying that.
So tell us about your app.
Yeah. So, it's called Starship SE Corps, and Corps in like Marine Corps, CORPS. And the SE in the title stands for Systems Engineer. I'm a systems engineer by trade. And to those that aren't really familiar with that, systems engineers pretty much are the chief architects of a product that you want to design, whether it's big or small. And the process of systems engineering is to take customer requirements, you develop specifications based on those requirements, you build architectures, you build basically, what are all the functions I need to do for this system based on these requirements? So you build out kind of a functional architecture of here's all the things based on the requirements that I think this product that I'm developing has to be able to do behaviorally. What are the behaviors? What are the functions? And then you move into the phase as a systems engineer. You figure out, okay, well, what are all we call it logical architecture. What are all the hardware and software components that need to be able to do those functions and meet those requirements? That's kind of the front end work that I do as a systems engineer every day. And then the back end is once you built something with hardware and software, you have to what we call integrate it, obviously. You have to put the lower level pieces together and then test that. Then you take that and another piece, put it together at the next level, and you test that. And ultimately, you have kind of a cyclical cycle of integration and test. And then you verify against the requirements. So you go way back and say, okay, this requirement said you have to be able to do this. Well, we should have some kind of method. And it's usually something like a test or an analysis or an inspection of drawings. How are you going to prove to your customer that you verified what they wanted in their requirements and their specification? And that's kind of a long story short, that's kind of what a systems engineer does. So my app takes kind of my day-to-day job of doing systems engineering and my love of Star Trek as kind of a fan. I'm a big fan of Star Trek since I was little, watching it with my father, in the late 60s. And then on reruns. And I wanted to combine it together. So kind of the concept of the app, and it says it on the App Store. What if Starfleet, in the future, building all these starships, had to use this systems engineering process that we're familiar with today in different engineering companies, whether you're building planes or you're building widgets or whatever like that. What if Starfleet's legislated you've got to do this kind of systems engineering? And in particular, what we're doing nowadays is what we call model-based systems engineering. So instead of having one document in a folder that has all your requirements, and say you have another app or another folder that has, here's all your functions, it's kind of hard to keep track of those together. But the new thing we're trying to do as systems engineers is to have everything in an electronic model. And then if it's in a model, in an app, you can make relationships between your requirements, between your functions, and between your hardware and software. And you link everything together with the idea being that it becomes the source of truth of the state of your system anytime you're building it. So if someone says, you know what, this other function that we didn't have before, and say if you add that into the model, well, you've got to be able to link it to something else to see what it affects. Maybe it affects someone building software. And if you don't tie those things together in a model, electronic model, then things get dropped and stuff. So the new thing systems engineers are doing over the last really couple decades, but in particular the last decade with software, is to put all of the stuff I was talking about in an electronic model. And the app basically relates everything. So I said, let me start doing an app, but it's based on kind of the entertainment value of thinking as a Starfleet engineer. I'm in the systems engineering core for Starfleet. How would I use what I do for requirements or all these things and pretend I'm building a new class of Starship? You know, the old Enterprise is getting old, so we got to come up with a new version of a Starship in the future. So I just play off that theme, and that's kind of a mix of what this app does. It's become a little bit more interactive for the Vision Pro, but like I said, I got a lot more to add. But that's kind of the gist of it. I do systems engineering. That's kind of my background, and I love Star Trek. What if I put those two interests together in this kind of entertainment app? So that's kind of what it's about.
Someone who's has an engineering interest or background, and or someone who has a Star Trek background,
Right.
This could be a good combination of both worlds for them to kind of play and create and design and put together models of how it works.
Right. And it's still very kind of curated at this point. As I go and do some more features that I was talking about before, I'll be able to add more diagrams and more ability to make relationships between the different aspects. So it's still kind of early days, but the interactivity is going to grow. But yeah, people that are interested and understand or want to learn about systems engineering, they can kind of get a high level view of what that is. Maybe that'll pique their interest to go research more. And I just thought it was fun to say, hey, what if you were a Star Trek engineer and you had to use this process? So I kind of lay out the app with that kind of concept. So it might be interesting to both crowds.
Yeah. Cool. Very cool. I'm glad you could talk about it. And I really think people who are creative kind of follow their passions in the process, and both of your passions are combined into this, and it's kind of a creative new way of looking at it. And it is the Starship SE Corps, CORPS, for folks that want to search for it in the App Store. And we'll have a link again in the episode notes to that directly. I'm glad that you're here to talk about it, and the way that you spoke about the process, I think, was helpful for folks who don't know anything about either one of those, and also developing to get to understand how things are put together like that. So I'm appreciative of that.
Great.
I'm watching the time in terms of the episode, and for the last couple of shows, I've had this product accessory discussion in, because what strap do you use, Andy?
I've gone back and forth, honestly. I tried the original Unistrap until I learned it kind of got uncomfortable for me. So I went over to the I forget what we call it, the dual loop. The one over and that definitely was more comfortable. But recently I've tried to go back to the original solo strap, and I've found just enough ways to move it with my hand on the back plus tighten it to find it where I could watch for quite or use it quite a bit longer. So I use both, and I've kind of gone between both because I wanted to really work the experience of both. So I guess the answer is both.
You and me both. I've gone back and forth. I've been doing the solo strap for a while now, thinking I'm going to go back to the dual strap for a while. Because the solo strap I have to fidget with a little bit too much. When I first started using it and went back to it, as you know, I didn't fidget with it. Now I'm getting fidgety, so I think I'm going to go back to the dual loop for a while. But everybody talks about these additive products, and I bought them because I wanted to see if they really help as much as people claim they do. And I'll talk about this on another episode when we've got more space. But I got the Spigen and also the Anapro, and I major fault with one of them. And I'm communicating with the business about it, and they're not giving me satisfactory answers. They're telling me, well, this is how you're supposed to put it on. I know how to put it on. But I think there are some actual structural problems with one of them, and the other one's it's okay. So we'll talk about that at another time. But new apps worth mentioning. There were some that were thrown in there. You talked about Andy, you talked about the idea of having the cinema. Theater is like that.
Yeah, I used it last week. I watched the talk show on it.
Oh, okay. All right. But, other than that, I think it's YouTube.
It pretty much is for right now. Yeah.
It's because I set it up a couple days ago and then managed to connect my YouTube account with it. And so I'm watching YouTube with it. But a lot of buzz on that. A lot of people are purchasing it. It's new, and so it's interesting. And I think it's free, but if you want to open up more of the possibilities with it, and do something other than just watch the talk show from WWDC, I think it's like $4. So it's not.
I went ahead and just did it $3.99. Yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
But yeah, they did have a free promo if you wanted to watch the talk show that night, whatever day that was, Wednesday. You could do free, but then I think beyond that you needed to pay the $3.99. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now, television, I haven't done television yet.
Yeah.
Eric, did you put that in?
Yeah, I think is that the same developer, just two different apps?
I think it is.
Yeah, you're right.
I think it's the same one, Sandwich or something.
But you're supposed to be able to do share play of YouTube apps, so you can have multiple people watching the same synchronized YouTube. It came up, it connected. I haven't had much time to play with it outside of it, but it did what I wanted it to do, so I threw it in there.
Yeah, it's got that kitschy sort of old television frame with it. So yeah, I haven't done. Now I put in Beautiful Things 3D palette. Have either of you played with Beautiful Things? Okay.
No, I haven't.
It is USDX, or I think it's USDX. It is a framework that creates 3D objects. So Eric, you've been in space and you've seen those 3D objects that people throw down on the table.
Oh, yeah.
Those are all, they come from Beautiful Things. You can go in there. They have a whole inventory of them, and you can download them or bring them onto your device and then share them in different spaces. And the inventory's gotten bigger and bigger in terms of these kinds of 3D and animated. Some of them are animated. And the recent release or upgrade said that it was interactive, that you can interact with some of the elements in there. So you got a dog, you can get a dog down, and it gives you the option to talk to the dog. I played with it. It was interesting. It wasn't as interactive as, having your own little pet. But that is the new layer that they put on top of it in terms of Beautiful Things. If you haven't checked it out, it's a good app. I think it's a free app. And there's some fun stuff in there. Andy, you mentioned What If, and I know I saw Eric respond to What If too. It's a great and I think Jason Snell said this is kind of the app that we hope will be a template for how people do interactive in spatial computing. Really
Very well
entertaining.
done. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree.
And I'm not a Marvel guy. I'm not I've seen some of the movies. Now there are just too many of them.
Now.
Yeah, I'd like smaller worlds. I don't need universes. But it is amazing in terms of what you can do with it. I still had some problems with hand coordinating the gaming part of it. And I mentioned this on a previous show that I think the game gave up on me and just said,
I remember you
okay,
said
this
that,
is what's going to happen. And then, Captain America came down and said, thank you for your help. It was like,
Right.
you were holding the guy and I was trying to get him to, put him in a cage, and that didn't work well. So I don't know how much help I was. Thanks for patronizing me and being real polite. So yeah, those are the apps that we'd like to mention. And again, the links will be again in the episode notes for folks that have that. Well, Andy, it's been great having you. I hope
it's been
that
great
you'll
being
find
here.
time in the future to come back and tell us a little bit more about what's changed or what's new with you in terms of app development, and have that conversation to help us non-developers understand that process that you go through.
Yeah, right on, for sure. Appreciate the time.
Eric, any final notes?
No, it's been a busy week.
Yeah, well, you're going to have to put that Vision Pro on and just live in it for the next week.
Let me quick see if the update, did anything, or if it's still thinking. Let's see. Ooh, something happened.
This makes for fabulous audio.
Great audio, right?
Apple logo.
Yep, you got it.
Now just a pause. Now it's going through all the stuff. So yeah,
it has to go through the cycle. You're going to have to, reset your eyes and all of that.
Yeah, it's going to have to wait.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll get back to that later, and then I'll have something for next week.
Well,
I'll try the loaning it out to somebody, and we'll see how that goes.
The loaning it out to somebody?
The guest mode where it remembers the person.
Oh,
yeah. That's because you have friends
who really want to turn.
Yeah, I want to make a plug, and this is just a kind of an unsolicited plug for the Macstock Expo, and Macstock Expo and Conference.com is the link to it. And Eric will be there. I'll be there. A lot of other Mac folks will be there to do presentations. The first day is workshops. I'm doing a little bit on practical uses of AI and language models in terms of workflow and productivity. And then I'm doing another presentation on how to not become your family's tech support. Basically, how to have them create their own agency in solving problems around their Mac or Apple products. So Macstock Expo and Conference.com, and you can find out all sorts of information about that. It is a group of people who used to go to Macworld and be out there with developers and product. And it was their annual pilgrimage to that. And then that kind of all got shut down. And they said, we need to do this in our own community, in our own space. And so it's in Woodstock, or it's actually in Crystal Lake this year, which is next to Woodstock, Illinois. But that's why it's called Macstock, because it's a combination of Mac and Woodstock. So take a look at that. Macstock Conference and Expo. Did I get that right, Eric?
Yep. July 12th, 13th, and 14th.
Okay, great. And, take a look at it and see. Even I think they're going to probably have virtual passes. So if you can't make it and you still want to watch the presentations, you can do that with a virtual pass. So just thanks for tuning in. Our background music is Free Jazzy, and it's courtesy of Steve Combs from the Free Music Archive. We'd love to hear from our listeners. If you have ideas or want to join an episode like Andy did. We heard from Andy and we're like, yeah, come on, this is going to be cool. Email us at visionprofilespodcast@gmail.com. Learn more about us and the Vision Profile Podcast on our website, visionprofiles.info. Spread the word to other visionaries. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.